In this video, we'll learn how to create a PDF or generate a PDF in LWC. So let's look at the approach that we're going to follow. So we will create a LWC component in which we'll design the layout, and that layout will pass to a controller along with the contact record ID. For this demo, we are using the contact record. This PDF controller will catch the record ID as well as the content of the PDF, and it store that PDF into a attachment of the contact record, and the content of the PDF will store in a PDF text parameter for Visual Force page. In this demo, we're gonna render our HTML of LWC in the Visual Force page. For that, we're gonna create a Visual Force page, and once our PDF controller returns the attachment ID, we'll open that attachment ID in the Visual Force page, and once the page loads, it will call its controller and fetch the PDF text data that we stored while calling the PDF controller. So that's the overall approach. So let's go to VS Code and start building this. So I'm in my VS Code, and let's create the component. Let's create the Lightning Web component first. We'll say PDF generation demo. The component is created. Now we are going to create an invoice form, and that form we're gonna print out in the PDF. That's the most common use case in any industry. So for that, I already created some sample data. So I'll paste it here and start explaining you. So in the invoice, I'm gonna show the invoice number, invoice created, invoice due, and then I'm saying company name, showing company name, address, and address too. I want a company logo. For that, I'm using this URL for the logo. Apart from that, I need the client data for which this invoice is. So I have a client data. Don't worry, you'll get the whole code in the resources of this video. And the client is Acme Corp. The username is John Doe and @sample.com. And whenever we generate an invoice, we should tell them the services or the amount that they have used. For that, I have the services array, and these services we're gonna render on the HTML as well as on the PDF. So now we have the data. Let's go to the HTML and start building the design. So I'll start with the main container. I'll give the class container, and in this I'll create a div as a wrapper, and I'll load the image. I'll say source as image URL. Apart from that, we can give some style. We can give height 40 pixel. And just remember, whenever we are trying to render the LWC component in the Visual Force page, we have to make sure we give the style inline, because our component will not able to pass the external CSS, first thing. And the second thing to keep in mind, don't use standard LWC component for the designing, because those components use the shadow DOM. So when we extract the DOM for passing the data to a PDF or to a Apex controller, it will not take the whole DOM. So it's always try to build the design in the plain HTML and CSS. So we have now width 50 pixel. So my image is ready. Image is nothing, it's an icon in the invoice. Then we have a div, and I have some tags. So I'll just paste these tags because it's a very simple thing. So I'm showing on the screen invoice, when it's created, when it's due, and I'm getting the data from the invoice data dot invoice number, invoice created, and invoice due. Then after that, we're gonna create another wrapper, this one more wrapper, and then we're gonna pass our company details, that is invoice data dot company name, invoice data dot address 1 and address 2. And I'll copy this whole I'll paste it here, and here what we want is the client details. So I'll remove this one and I'll say client data dot client data dot username, and client data dot email. This is just a layout that I'm doing. Apart from that, I want to create a table like structure, but I'm creating the table with the div only here. So I'll say I want to show services that they have opt for and the amount for the each service. And apart from that, we want to render the services, and it's an array of objects, so we're going to use the loop here. We'll say template iterator. I am using iterator because in the last I want to show the sum. So iterator loop I'm going to use for each. I can't use to show the sum at the end of the loop. So iterator loop is beneficial here. So I'll say iterator service. Service is the each object, and I'm running a loop on a services. This is the syntax of iterator. The service is each object. It's the whole of array of object, and to use this we're gonna say div. First I'll say service dot value dot name to be printed, and after this I want to print the amount, and I want the amount to be appended with the dollar, and it's showing error because we forgot to add the key attribute. That is important. And after the loops end, right, so during the last iteration I want to show immediately the amount. So I'll say total amount here, and I will give the key to this as well because both are at same level. And now if I run this, it will loop every time the iterator runs. So I want to run this only once the last iteration is going on, and for that I'm going to use a special property of iterator, that is dot last, object dot last. So whenever the object is last in the loop, it will render this div. And now we have to generate the total amount. For that we're going to write a getter. I'm going to create a total amount getter in the JS, and let's create getter total amount. And to get the total amount from an array of object, the easiest option is to use the reduce method. So we are running the loop on the services, and we calling the reduce. Reduce will take first argument as total, second as the each object. So you can call it as service, and I'll use the arrow operator. I'll say the total should be initialized with the 0. So when the loop start, the total is 0, and then we'll say total equal to total plus service dot amount. So for the first time it will be 0 plus 1000, then the total become 1000. Second time it comes here, the total is 1000, the 1000 plus 300 1300, likewise 75 will come and the total will return. So we have designed a template, we have set up the data. Let's deploy this, and to deploy this we have to change this to true. And for the meta targets, we're going to use the contact record. So we're going to use a record page here. So I'll change the app to a record page, and let's deploy this. So now it's deployed. Let's go to the page and look for the contacts. If it not show in your app, you can add that item from this pencil icon. You can say add more item and search for the account. So I already added it here. I'll go to contacts, I'll go to a contact record and young, and let's edit the page, and let's drag our component to this page. So let's search for PDF generation demo, and I'll drag this component to the right hand side. Let's hit save. Let's go back. And now rendering the data, but it's not aligned. So let's start giving the styling. Let's do the right click and let's start the class container, and we'll give the class here. First thing, we want to give the background white. So we'll say background white, and now we want to give some padding so that it should not touch the borders. So I'll say padding 60 pixel. Let's copy the styling. Let's go back to our code and give the style, and all style should be inline. Now let's come back. Now the first thing we want is this text to be aligned on the right hand side of the icon, and for that what we're gonna do is we'll go to the div and say display inline block, and we'll say float right. So now it's aligned properly. Let's go and give this style. Now I want there should be a margin bottom here, so let's go and select this and say margin bottom 16 pixel, not 116, 16, and let's make it 50. That's a good amount of space, so let's give 50 pixels so that it looks cleaner. Now it's there, and now we want these things to be aligned properly. I want these and this to be aligned in a single line. So for that I'm gonna do again display inline block, and to another one as well display inline block, and to the second one I'll say float right. Now it's aligned. Let's go and add the style. I'll copy the same style from here, and I'll say to the second div the style should be inline block right. To the first div should be inline block, but the float should not be there. Now let's go and check the heading of the services and amount. This is the header of the table basically. So what we're gonna do is we'll go to the wrapper of them and say background is of gray color. Say little bit margin to the top and the bottom. Then we want the padding so that it not touch the borders, and let's paste this code. And here we want to align this, so the funda is very simple. For the alignment we want the amount to be on the right hand side, and we want the services to be on the left hand side, and the align in the same line. That will work there as well. Just for a confirmation we can do it the screen as well. So the first thing we want inline block, secondly we want inline block and float right. It's looking better. Now we want to align these things as well in the same way. Let's go and apply the same style for the amount, and the same style of service the name. And apart from that we want to give some styling to our total amount, because we want our total amount to be on the right hand side. So we'll copy the style with the float right, paste it. So let's deploy this and see if it's looking good or not. And it's deployed. Let's refresh the page. and now it's looking really good, except we can align the text to the right. See this and say text align and right. Here, and apart from that we can give some padding to this and say padding 8 pixel, so it will align properly. Come to our iterator and say file padding 8 pixel, and the same we can give it here as well. And let's deploy and see. So the designing you can do based on your requirement. We are just trying to make it a little bit beautiful. Let's refresh the page. So now it's looking really nice. So our invoice is ready. Now we have to get this content on a click of a button. Let's go and create a button. So outside the container I'm gonna create a button. So it will be lightning button variant brand table generate PDF, and I'll say on click call PDF handler. Let's close the button tag. So on click of this button we are calling the PDF handler. So let's create the method PDF handler, and what we want is on click of this button the whole HTML within the container class should print in my console. For that what we're gonna do is we'll say let content equal to dot template dot query selector, and query selector will take the class name container, and in the console we'll say console.log content.outer HTML. So this console will print the whole HTML from line number 2 to line number 39. So whatever it's there inclusive class container, it will print everything in this. So this content we have to pass, but before passing it, let's make sure it's printing or not. Let's deploy this. Now it's deployed. Let's go and refresh the page. Now our button is available. Let's go to the console, clear the console and click the generate PDF. And now if I open it, you can see it's printing whole HTML within the container. So we have to pass this string to our apex. So let's go and see how we can do that. So first thing what we're going to do is, now our LWC part is almost ready. We want a container that will render this whole HTML, and for that we're going to create a Visualforce page, and let's create a Visualforce page and we'll give this name as a render as PDF. So go to the command palette, select create Visualforce page, give render as PDF as my page name. So my page is ready. First what I'm gonna do is, this page needs a controller that we haven't created yet, but as a placeholder I'm adding it here. Then the most important attribute here is render as PDF. This will convert this page into a PDF. Then we want apply HTML tags to be false, and we have to hide the header as well. So we'll say show header equal to false. We'll say the cache to be true, and we want this PDF to be a read only we'll add a attribute read only true. So till here we have added all the important attributes for the Apex page. Let's create a HTML tag. Within the HTML tag we have to add the head tag along with the meta. So meta will tell what kind of our content is. So it's char set UTF-8 content type. And here we have to load our text basically that we are passing from LWC, right? So for that we need a container that will load that, and to cache the content we'll use Apex output text field, and we'll say the value that will come here, the value that we are passing, and we'll say escape equal to false. Now the container is ready. We don't know which value gonna come and what's the controller name. So let's create a controller. Let's go command palette and say create Apex class, and I'll say PDF page controller. So this is my controller now, and in this controller we'll say first we'll create a getter setter. So we'll say public string, and I'll say whatever the text come is as like PDF text. I'll say get set, and within this method what I'm going to do is PDF text equal to string dot escape single quotes, and here I'll call it from the Apex pages. I'll say Apex pages, whatever the current page it's load, get the parameter, and get which parameter we want, and whenever we'll set the parameter we'll use the same text that I'm giving it here for getting. So I'll say whenever the LWC pass the data to a controller, it should set in the same parameter, and when the Visual Force controller call it, it will call the same parameter, save it in a variable PDF text, and fix this. Now we have the PDF text available in our controller. So first we'll go to our Visual Force page and give the controller name, that is the PDF page controller, and the field that we are exposing that will receive the data, we'll set it into the value, say exclamation mark, and the field that is exposed by the controller. So this will load the data. Let's close this tag Apex output, and now our PDF container is ready, that is the Visual Force page controller is ready, but still there is a link missing, that is how our LWC will pass the data to a controller and how that will come to this controller and all, right? So let's fix that. Now first step is, now our data is there available in the console. We want to pass this record data with the record ID to a class. So let's create that class first, and we'll say that class name is PDF controller. So let's create another class. Oh, it should not be a LWC class, it should be Apex class. So let me delete this. Let's create an Apex class, PDF controller. So now the class is created. So what we're gonna do is we'll say aura enabled, that is important for our method to be shown on the LWC. Public static, we want the return type as attachment. We'll give this method name as generate PDF, and I'll say it will receive ID, the record ID of type ID, and it will receive HTML data of type string. So once ID of the record and the HTML data comes, First we will set that HTML data, and to set that HTML data, first we'll call the page reference. So what we're gonna do is we'll say page equal to page dot, what's our page name, that is render as PDF. So Visual Force page reference, we are calling it here and storing it to a page that is of type page reference. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna set the parameter that our controller is getting whenever the Visual Force page loads. So we need to set that, and to set that we're gonna say page dot get parameters dot put with the same name that we are using to consume PDF text, put PDF text, and the data is the data that is coming. So we are setting the parameter PDF text and storing the HTML data there. So passing it, not storing, passing it. So now first task is done, by which we are able to pass the reference. So now second step is we want to store this data as a PDF into the record attachment of the contacts, especially contact records. For that we'll pass the reference of the contact that ID is. So we'll say contact on equal to new contact. We are creating a contact reference with the record ID that you are passing from LWC. So now we have a contact reference. We'll say attachment obj attachment equal to new attachment. We have created a new object here of type attachment, and now we gonna attach some property to this object. First property is the name. So you can pass this name of the PDF from the LWC as well, but here I'm giving it as a hard-coded name, invoice PDF. Apart from that, I want parent ID. So I'll say parent ID equal to contact.id. Then I want body to be saved. So I'll say page.get content as PDF. So I'm calling the method of page, that is get content as PDF. So it will give the content in the PDF format, and then we'll say dot is private equal to false. And now let's insert this attachment. We are inserting the object attachment, and we'll return the object of. So first we set the parameter PDF text to a page reference, and then we create the contact from the record ID. Basically we are getting the contact reference, and in the contact we are attaching the attachment that we are getting as a PDF. Now we convert it here as a get content as a PDF, and it will save. So let's go to our JS file, and now let's call this controller. I'll come here and I'll say import generate PDF from Salesforce Apex PDF controller dot generate PDF. So this is the class name dot method name, and once the method is available, I'll call this method name. We have to pass two parameters to this method. One is the record ID, another is the HTML data. So for record ID we can pass it as this dot record ID, and this record ID we can get from the @API, because we already know we are placing this component in a record page, and in the record page if we use @API record ID, it will gives us the record ID of that page. So a record ID will get it, and we have to pass the HTML data, and HTML data we already have seen in the console, content.outer HTML. We are passing it, and this is a imperative apex approach. This method will return the promise. So to catch the promise, we're gonna use the then method, and let's print the result in the console. This will gives us the basically attachment ID, and if it throws an error, we will catch the error, and I'll console that error. And let's deploy this and see how it works. And it throws an error, apex class does not exist, method does not incorrect signature. So let's go to page, PDF page controller. Let's look at the PDF text. I guess I misspell it here with a small t. And let's quickly check in the PF page as well. I'm giving the PDF text as capital, and in the other controller as well text capital. So let's deploy this again. See? And again the error, and it's saying incorrect signature void get parameters. So get parameter spelling is wrong. Let's fix this out, and let's deploy this again. And now it's deployed successfully. So we have deployed our VF page controller, then we have our controller, PDF controller, and our LWC component. So let's go to the page and refresh the page. Now what it should do is, when I click on generate PDF button, it will take the content of this whole card, go to the apex, generate an ID and print that ID in the console, and here we should able to see a attachment. So let's go and refresh the page once again. So now what I want is, instead of coming here and opening the PDF, I want on click of this button only I should able to see the PDF. So let's go to our code, and we'll say whenever the result comes, we'll say window.open, and we'll copy that URL, this one. I'll say paste this URL, and I'll replace till the last from the file, and I'll attach dynamically the ID of the attachment, and the ID I'm getting from result.id, and this window.open will open the URL, and let's deploy and see on click of generate whether it's generating the PDF in the new tab or not. Now it's deployed. Let's go back and refresh the page. And I'll close the previous one, close this one as well. So I'll click the generate PDF and it's opening something, and yes, it's opening our PDF in a separate tab and you can download it from here. So that's how we generate the PDF in LWC, and it's little bit long, but it's good to learn because it's a very much needed feature in most of the application. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next video.